Hello everyone, this is DadBod Tactical Gamer bringing you a how to play video for Warhammer Underworlds online. So I'm going to start off right away by saying this video is designed for new players to the game. I'm not going to go in depth into the tactics and the strategy and some of the finer details like board placement and objective placement. In this video we are just going to cover the basics of how to play. So as a new player, you're going to open up the game, start off, and you're going to have a list of factions. I am not going to go into detail of each faction and how they play and what their pros and cons are. For now, I'm just going to select one and go into a bot match. I will say that bot matches are going to be one of the best places for you to really experiment and find out how warbands work, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, and how the game goes. So when you start a game of Warhammer Underworlds online, you'll be forced into choosing a board. For now, we're not going to again go into the details of which boards work and why, simply going to bring you guys an explanation of how to play the game. So first thing you're going to have to do is place objective tokens. As you start to understand the strategy at a deeper level, there is a lot of thought that goes into where you would place each one of these tokens. But for now, I'm simply going to just get into the game and go from there. So as this loads up, I'm going to start by saying there is only one objective in any match you play of Warhammer Underworlds online, and that is to score glory. The winner is always going to be the person with the highest glory total. It doesn't matter about how many fighters you take out of action. It does not matter how the game goes. All that matters is that you have the most glory at the end of the game. So you score glory one of two ways. By completing an objective card, which you're going to see are gold cards in your hand, and each card will represent how much glory you score with these little copper coins at the bottom. So meet the condition on a card, you get a point. You also get a glory point every time you take an enemy fighter out of action. So when you make an attack and you deal enough damage to successfully remove a fighter, you will also score a glory. Add up those counts by the end of the game and highest score wins. So at the beginning of the game, you'll be forced to decide if you want to keep your starting hands or discard them. For this game, I'm going to keep my hands because I actually got a pretty good card draw. Everything's decided by a roll-off, and once the roll-off has taken place, the winner will make the decision. So here it's all about who wants to place the first fighter on the board. I'm going to select my opponent. So what happens, this is called the deployment phase, and we are going to place our fighters on the board. I'm going up against a warband here that has 7 fighters, all represented here, and I simply have 3 fighters. So going to go ahead and place my first one. You'll notice when you go to place a fighter, you can only place them in one of these green highlighted areas. These are known as starting hexes. So choose your deployments carefully. For this game, I'm going to deploy very, very close to the enemy so that I can make a lot of the actions to demonstrate and show you guys how to play the game. Now that I'm done deploying, all of the rest of the fighters will be deployed by my opponent. So, this was the roll-off to start round 1. What's going to happen here is the game consists of 3 rounds. 3 rounds of 8 activations each. So round 1 will get played. Once you finish round 1, you'll score any objectives in the end phase. Like seize ground here, if I'm holding an objective in enemy territory, I get a glory. This could be either objective 3 or objective 5. So round 1, 4 activations. My opponent also gets 4 activations. Essentially 8 activations make up a round. You play 3 rounds and then determine who's got the best result at the end. So I'm going to go in and quickly explain activations. First, I'm going to let my opponent go first. So in an activation, you got a couple of different choices. My opponent right here just made an attack action. You'll notice no little symbol popped up above their head. They simply made an attack. After an activation is made, this is now when you get to play cards. And any number of cards can be played in between activations. So it's going to go activation, and then card, 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 card. And the card alternates back and forth. Your opponent plays one, then you play one, and back and forth and back and forth. So what happens is the order of playing the cards is always going to start with whoever just took the last activation. So my opponent played. I am not going to play a card right now. I'm simply going to pass. So in my activation, I have the option to do a couple of things here. I could choose to move, which you would simply click on a fighter, and it'll highlight their movement range. So I could move to any one of these blue hexes. To do that, I'd simply click on the hex and click move. Doing this would just end my turn, and that's all I would have accomplished. Alternatively, you can just make an attack action, where you'll saw the queen did that to me last round. She's got a range 2 attack, and she simply attacked my leader, Severin Steelheart. So I could take Oberyn over here, and I could just choose to make an attack with his Sigmarite Grand Hammer. I could do this and still be freed up for lots of activations down the road. The other activation that I could make is called a charge action, where you can do a move followed by an attack. Now, be warned, if you make a charge action, your fighter will get a charge symbol above their head. They can no longer be activated for the rest of the round. So if I were to use my first 3 activations to make 3 charges, on turn 4, none of my fighters could be activated again. So use charges wisely and realize that that fighter is out of commission now for the rest of the round. So we've covered moves, we've covered attacks, we've covered charges. The last thing that you can do is go on guard. What this does is, on the 6-sided die, it allows you to roll a successful save on shields or dodge symbols. There are 2 shields and there's 1 dodge symbol on a 6-sided die, and then there's a critical, which we'll get into during some of the dice rolls. So going on guard gives you an increased probability of rolling a defensive roll. It's going to be strategic when you use and choose not to use this token. I'll go into the strategy of those things later. So the last thing that you can do is you can choose to draw a power card. If you didn't want to take an activation, you could simply just draw another card into your deck. Or you can discard an objective and draw another objective. The reason why you have to discard before you can draw with the objectives is you can never have more than 3 objectives in your hand. Whereas with power cards, you could have 10 power cards in your hand if you want to. There are some cards that let you draw additional cards and so on and so forth. So you can always have any number of power cards in your hand. You get to draw up to 5 in any round, but with objectives, you can never have more than 3. So, all that being said, it's my first activation. Let's get this game going. I'm going to simply make an attack action on the Everhanged. So, right there was an example where I rolled a critical to his single successful defense. And I have a reactionary card, which I don't need to play right now, but I did 3 damage. That's going to take a fighter out of action. And right there is the 1 glory that I have scored for successfully taking a fighter out of action. Now, like I said, after every activation, you can play as many power cards as you want. So what I'm going to do here is there are 2 types of power cards. There are ploys. These are simply just cards that let you interact with the environment of the game. And all of them read very, very specific, so take a look at those. But these are simply played to manipulate something going on within the game. Versus gear. Gear are basically pieces of equipment that you can place onto a fighter to change their statistics. So right here, I'm going to use the 1 glory that I've earned and spend it to equip Blessed Armor onto one of my fighters. It's going to give them 1 more health. And I'm going to give that on my weakened fighter already. So you'll see here, he went from 2 health up to 5 with already the 2 damage that he's taken. So gear will spend your glory. You'll see that my little copper coin got turned to clay or whatever, you still have the 1 glory point, so it still counts towards your score at the end of the game. So spending glory doesn't harm you. You haven't lost your score, but gear can only be used by spending glory that you've earned within the game. So already we've covered most of the mechanics of the game. You'll see his queen just made a charge action. This little symbol here shows a move and attack were done. She's now out of action for the rest of this round. She cannot be activated again, and my opponent still has 2 turns, and I still have 3 turns left to go within this game. So I'm going to go ahead and pass, and it's going to go into my second activation. So here I get the opportunity. I can't make an attack because I'm not beside anybody, so I'm going to demonstrate what a charge was. So I'm going to make a move, and I'm going to attack a fighter. I'm going to use this Sigmarite broadsword, and real quick, it shows the characteristics of the attack. So you can see that it's range 1, so I have to be 1 hex away from the fighter I'm attacking. I get to roll 2 dice on the hammer symbol. And later I'll go into the actual dice characteristics. But I have to roll a hammer or a critical for my attack to be a success. And if it is, it's going to do 3 points of damage to the Briar Queen. So I'm going to go ahead and make this attack. And I rolled 1 hammer. Now my opponent rolled a critical for their defense. That has basically stopped and blocked my attack. A critical, an attack will always be resolved by criticals first. So essentially the game looks at who rolled more criticals, you or your opponent. You could roll 5 dice that are all hammers, and if your opponent rolls 1 critical, they blocked the attack. So criticals are key. On a 6-sided die, there's only 1 side that is a critical, so that was really unfortunate. Now, however, I had a power card that, as you can see here, lets me react, and if I fail an attack, which I just did, I get to make that attack again. So let's take another swing at her. It will let me choose which attack characteristic I want to use, because I could use my broadsword or I could use my mighty swing, but I'm again going to go with that broadsword. This time I missed because I did not roll a hammer or a critical. So, unfortunate. However, I have not taken out his leader. So I'm going to go ahead and pass in the power step. He's just equipped a gear onto this chain rasp. I'm still going to pass. So he just used a ploy card here to uninspire my fighter, which is unfortunate, but part of the game. Doesn't matter what kind of game plan you come up with, the enemy's going to throw lots of tricks at you. It's going to be quite interesting. Alright, so thankfully blocked another attack. I'm going to pass. So I have 2 activations left and I have 2 unused fighters, so I'm going to make another charge. I'm going to charge onto Objective 3. Objectives are just little location features on the map. There's 5 of them, and they hold significant value based on some objective cards that you'll have. So I'm going to move and charge at the Briar Queen. And I miss gloriously. This game is just, for a demonstration game, it clearly wants me to lose, but that's okay. So what's happened here, where you can see some of his ghosts are glowing versus not glowing, that's called inspiring. Every fighter has an inspire mechanic. For my team, if I roll a successful shield on defense or a critical on defense, they will inspire. Inspiring just gives you some additional stats. It changes your attack profile. It unlocks a lot of extra little abilities. So my last activation, again, I'm going to simply make a charge and attack. A critical and a hammer, so successfully took that chain rasp out of action, which scores me another glory, and I scored a card there called Lightning Strikes. Lightning Strikes is successfully taking a fighter out with a charge. So I got 1 glory for the kill, and I got 1 glory for completing the objective. And with that, I'll actually spend it to put the vampiric weapon on Severin. This gear allows me, if he takes a fighter out of action, he will actually heal a wound. So there you have it. We've both completed our 4 actions of round 1. Now we go to the end phase where people will score their cards. So he scored Ploy Master, which was having 3 or more ploys in the preceding action phase. And I'm going to score Seize Ground when it comes to my turn. There we go. Because I'm standing on an objective token on enemy territory. You'll notice when we deployed, this was my board over here. This is friendly territory. These hexes that connect our boards are considered no man's land. And then this is enemy territory. So I have this card right here, Advancing Strike. It's if I take an enemy warband out of action that is standing in enemy territory. When I made this knockout attack here, he was not standing in enemy territory, which is why I did not score this card. And here's an example of an objective card that interacts with those tokens on the board. So if I'm holding Objective 3 and Objective 4, which there's Objective 3, and Objective 4 is way back there, I score 2 glory. So now that the end phase is over, you get to just go into round 2, and you get to do a little bit of deciding of what you want to keep and what you want to continue working with. I definitely think I'm going to score Advancing Strike, so I will remove and discard Tactical Supremacy out of my hands. I'll keep this, and then we go over to my cards. You can equip gear if you have it, but I don't. I actually am going to keep both of these cards, so I will pass. I could have discarded them if I wanted to. And I draw back up to 3 and 5 cards for round 2. So here we are. We completed round 1. We're into round 2. You roll off to see who goes first. My opponent unfortunately won, so they're going to make the very first attack. And right there, the Briar Queen has successfully knocked my leader out of action. I could choose to play any one of these cards, but right now, actually, you know what? I'm going to play Distraction. Distraction lets me pick an enemy fighter and push them 1 hex. So the reason why I've done this is when you go to make an attack action, when the fighter is beside a friendly fighter, you can add support symbols to your attack rolls. They also have a supporting person in the defense, but it's sometimes advantageous to make sure you've got multiple fighters surrounding an enemy fighter. So for my first turn, I'm going to try to score Advancing Strike by taking out the Queen. I've got this attack here that does 3 damage, and I know she has 4 health, but I've got a little trick up my sleeve with a card called Twist the Knife. Play this during a friendly fighter's attack action that has a range of 1 and will succeed. It will have +1 damage. So I play this card. Now my attack just did 4 damage, knocked the Queen out of action. I scored Advancing Strike, and I scored a glory for taking a fighter out of action. So I'm at a total of 6, with 2 spent, 4 unspent, to my opponent's 4. And I can do something like equip the Formless Key onto Bright Shield. So, pass, pass, pass. I don't want to play any more cards. Goes to my opponent's turn. So he rolled a successful attack, but because I rolled a critical, it's resolved by me winning. And now you'll notice my fighter is glowing blue because he met his Inspire condition, which has increased his stats. So, I'm going to go ahead and pass. For my second activation, you'll notice that Oberyn made an attack and took the Briar Queen out of action, and I can still select him and do more things because he didn't make a charge. So since there is another fighter beside me, I might as well attack again. And now that I'm inspired, I have 2 different attack profiles. They both look the same except for these special rules of Cleave or Knockback 1. Knockback 1, after you complete an attack action, if the fighter is still alive, you can choose to knock them back. With Knockback 1, I could knock him back 2 hexes away. So if I made a successful attack, he was still alive, I could knock him back to here. But cleave basically negates rolls of shield. I'm just going to make another attack. I rolled a critical, he did not. Another point for achieving another taking a fighter out of action. So now that I've taken that fighter out of action, again I can play some power cards. You know what, for the purposes of this game, let's use Sidestep. Just to demonstrate, another ploy card that lets you manipulate the battlefield. It allows me to push a fighter. So this is not a move, this is a push. Very, very different things, because a move gives you a move token. Once you have a move token, you can only move once per round. So push lets you get around the battlefield without wasting those precious actions of moving. And then I'll pass. There you go, Bright Shield just inspired because she met her inspire condition of rolling a successful block. So this is a really cool card, a little pro tip, fun card to have. Improvisation, you have to discard all of the power cards in your hand. Now, what makes this card so much fun? It's the only card in my hand. So I actually get to discard it and draw up 3 more cards. Really, really clutch in games to start giving you some really effective gear. Like right here, Trusted Defender is going to let me re-roll defense dice. That just increased my survivability by quite a lot. And so I will pass. So my opponent's taken 3 activations, I'm on my 3rd activation. I still don't have to make a charge, which is really nice, because I'm beside a fighter again. So I'm going to make another attack. So there, I rolled a critical and a success. The defender only rolled 1 critical. So like I said, when the game is resolving an attack, it's going to count up the amount of criticals, and we were equal. I had 1, he had 1. So then it looks to successes. I had a success, he did not. Therefore, the attack goes through, I do the damage, and I get another point of glory in this round. So I'll go ahead and pass. So he just made a charge. And thankfully I rolled a critical. He had a successful attack, but my critical negated anything that he had done. So I get to equip cards because we're in that power step. I'm going to equip the Blazing Key. This card here, if this fighter is holding objective 3, which that is the objective I'm standing on, at the very end of the 3rd end phase, the end of the game, I get 2 glory. And this is where those numbered tokens really come into play, is this piece of gear only interacts with this single token, which I happen to be standing on. So I'm going to equip that onto Oberyn. And my game plan for round 3 is going to make sure he is standing there at the end of the round. And then a Destiny to Meet, if this fighter is not taken out of action at the very end of the game, I get 1 glory. And I'll put that on Angrad because I think she has a high probability of not being taken out of action in the end of this game. So I still have another activation, and you know what? I could attack Varklov, but I think I'm just going to charge the Chainmask because charging's fun. So I rolled 2 successes to his none, scoring another glory. So we've now just finished all our activations. We get to play some cards. Goes into the end of the round. He scored one of his objectives. I do not score any. Oh no, I'll score hold objective 3 because I'm holding objective 3. And then I'm actually going to keep both of these because I'm very confident that I'll score those next round. So we go into round 3. This is the final round of the game. And comes down to now, who's going to rack up the most points before the end. So my opponent won the roll-off. It's calculated automatically, the nice thing. You don't have to figure it out. And my opponent's actually decided for me to go first. So I'm going to start. Actually, you know what? Here is where I am going to go on guard. What that's going to do, it's going to increase his defense characteristic. You will keep this little guard token until you make a charge. Once you make a charge, you lose your guard token. So by making him go on guard, I can just make attack after attack after attack and still remain with that bonus effect. And now that I've finished my activation because I used my action point to go on guard, now I can play as many cards as I want. So I'm going to put Great Fortitude on him, which is going to give him +1 health. He puts Driven by Hatred onto Varklov. I'm then going to put Great Strength, giving him +1 damage onto Oberyn. I'm then going to put the Awakened Weapon onto Oberyn. This is going to let me re-roll one of my attack dice. And just in case he finds a way to give Varklov +1 health, I'll put Incredible Strength on Oberyn as well. That way I'm dealing 5 damage on my attacks. So goes into my opponent's turn. He misses. I successfully defend. It's a good news story there. I could play Inspiration Strikes. It's just pick a fighter, they become inspired. But I mean, both my fighters are inspired. So it doesn't actually change anything, but play the card just for learning's sake. So here we go to making another attack action. Varklov, he's on his defense characteristic is 2 dodge. So the cleave doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what attack I do. Here's an example of my roll, and because I equipped that gear, the Awakened Weapon, you'll notice the game has frozen. It's not continuing to progress, because I have the option to re-roll a dice. I could re-roll my hammer, which I don't want to, because that's successful, but this side support, that was a missed roll, because I don't have any supporting fighters beside him. So I'm going to re-roll that. Now I have a critical, which is good, because he rolled 1 dodge. So my first attack would not have been successful, but because of that reroll, it's now a success. I gain an additional glory, and I'm just in great shape here. So here's where, even if all the fighters are taken out of action, you still get to keep playing. For my third activation, what I'm going to do is I want to look at my objectives. So Consecrated Area, I'm going to score this if no enemy fighters are beside mine. Check. I'm going to get that. Swift Advance, score this in the end phase if all my fighters are in enemy territory. Another check. But Change of Tactics, I score this immediately if my fighter that is on guard makes a charge. I can't make a charge because there's no one to attack. So for my third activation, I'm going to discard Change of Tactics because it's a dead card in my hand and draw into a new one, which I get Chosen Champion. This is score in the end phase if you have a fighter that has 3 or more friendly upgrades. And as you can see down here on Oberyn, he's got the Blazing Key, he's got Great Strength, he's got Incredible Strength, he's got more than 3 upgrades, so I'm now scoring all of the cards in my hand. But if you remember earlier in the game, I put the Formless Key onto Bright Shield. I score 1 glory in the third end phase as long as I'm holding any objective. Right now I'm not, so I'm just going to move on to objective 4 for my last activation, because standing on that objective gets me an additional glory. My opponent's turn, what they could try to do is they could draw cards and maybe draw a card that pushes one of my fighters. Just because you've lost all your fighters does not mean that you've lost the game. I've actually won games. I have a video in one of my playlists where playing the Steel Hearts Champions, all my fighters were taken out of action and I still won the game. So there you have it. That's the third end phase. It goes to now calculating scoring, which I have a pretty dominating 18-5 lead. So that covers the basics of how you play Warhammer Underworlds online. I really wanted to make this video to help explain the key concepts of the game, make everyone aware of what activations are, what 3 rounds are, how you need to sort of choose what actions you're doing to make sure you score those objective cards. Where I decided to discard an objective card, drew into one that I could score. Moving Bright Shield onto the objective at the end of the game was very key. Even with the way I equipped my gear, putting that Blazing Key onto Oberyn because he was already near objective 3. These are all decisions that you'll make throughout the game to score lots of glory. So this video again is going over the basics. I hope this helps for anyone that is struggling with this game or wants to learn the details, talk about tactics or strategy. Let me know in the comments. I would be more than happy to go over how to play this game with anyone. I'm all about growing the community, empowering others. There's a very active Discord server. There's a lot of great people that you can reach out to for advice. And if you're ever interested in making a collaborative video, we can connect on Discord, hook up our mics, and I'd be more than happy to start a video where we play back and forth with mic'd up through Discord. And if you're new, I can be, I'll play an easier deck, and we'll kind of talk through the game together, and I can give some coaching. Or if you're looking for a competitive match, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm the best player in the game. However, I can hold my own with just about anyone. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it brings a real educational piece to this game for new players, and for anyone you know getting started into Warhammer Underworlds online. Let them know about this video, and if there's anything else you think I should cover, please just let me know in the comments. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy this game. I look forward to playing you, hopefully in a future week.